Just want to remind committee, if you're going to be terribly late or going to be absent, just text Angela or myself so we'll know if we're going to have a quorum or anything of that nature. This is just a quick reminder. I forgot to mention it yesterday. Before we go to bill introductions, we have a point of personal privilege from Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very pleased to welcome my intern. I've really not had a chance to talk with her since she showed up just this morning in the middle of tax, but I'll ask her to stand up. And she's going to help me with her name, Aretha, and she's a senior at Washburn.
Fantastic. Welcome to Fed and State Affairs. All righty. Oh, we have another. Oh, very good, Senator Dietrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also have an intern who will be with me today and tomorrow, and then 1 day a week, and he's a freshman at Kansas State University's Topeka kid, Brady Clark.
Welcome, welcome. Any others? Okay, now let's open for bill introductions. First, any bill introductions from the committee? Senator Blue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 26 RS 2948, which is dealing with antique slot machines and the sale of them.
Any questions or objections to the introduction to that bill? Seeing none, that's introduced. Any other bill introductions? Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. I have 26 RS 2544. This is a resolution to deal with the Article 5 and the court case that happened earlier this year. Conforming, right.
Any questions or objections to introduction to that bill? Seeing none, that is introduced. Any other bill introductions? I think Senator Clays has one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and wise members of this committee. I am introducing 26 RS 2606. Briefly, this does three rather major changes to the state's election system. It moves the primary election from August to June. That would be from the first Tuesday in August to the first Tuesday in June in even-numbered years. Importantly, this does apply to across the state of national, county, township, city, school board, community college, water districts, municipal elections. It also changes, of course, the candidate filing deadlines to coincide with that. So those are going to be moved up correspondingly from June 1st at noon to April 1st at noon. And that applies to nomination petitions, declarations of candidacy, and, of course, the filing fees. Probably most controversial, and you guys can debate this, but it does remove the restrictions on legislation contributions during the session, since moving that up would potentially disadvantage some sitting candidates. So I am open to any questions or concerns.
Good. Committee, any questions or objections to the introduction of this bill? Senator Francisco.
Thank you. I heard the comment, any questions or concerns, and I do know that already it's very difficult for some of the candidates, especially for our school boards who are running for positions that are not paid, to spend a considerable amount of time campaigning. We lengthened that when we moved all the elections to November. This would exacerbate that. So just want to mention that concern.
Okay, well said. Thank you, Senator.
Yep. Any other questions or objections to introduction? Seeing none, that's introduced. Thank you, sir, very much. Any other bill introductions? Senator Starnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce the Roundabout Traffic Infraction Bill, 26 RS 2497. And right now, there's present legislation as far as a driver to signal to perform any turns, but at roundabouts, they are not included in those turns. And so it's a situation to show intent with tinted windows and things. I can't see what that other person is intending to do. And so in especially those that are taking the spots of stoplights and stop signs, roundabouts continue to be more and more and built to do that to help with efficiency And this is another option to help with efficiency and to hopefully help people know their intent. So that's the basis of the bill.
It is a free-for-all on those things sometimes. Any questions or objections to introduction of that bill? Senator Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, being from way western Kansas, I certainly object to roundabouts completely. So thank you.
The Conestoga wagons didn't have them, so why do we need them now? Any other questions or objections? Senator Falscadeau? Okay. Yeah, that bill is introduced. Thank you, Senator Storms. Any other bill introductions? Senator Falscadeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I don't actually have an RS number right now. It's being worked on, but I just wanted to get it in if it's possible. It's to require defibrillators to be at swimming pool sites to save the lives of children. And I'm not, so I've talked to Gordon Self, and he's assigned it to one of you. Thank you.
Any others? I have one, believe it or not, 26 RS 2708, and that would be imposing a ban on fluoride in the Kansas water supply. Any questions or objections to that one? Seeing none, that's introduced. Any further bill introductions? Whew, I think that's it for now. Okay, we're going to move on now to the hearing on HB 2331. And to give us a description of the bill, we'll have Jason step up and explain it to the committee. Jason? First one of the year.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. First bill hearing of the year. We're going to talk about disposition of the remains of deceased persons. This bill came over from the House at the end of last year. It amends 22A-215, which directs coroners in the disposition of the remains of deceased persons. The first thing the bill does, you'll see in lines 11 through 15, is it adds language that if the family or next of kin of the deceased refuses to accept the remains, then the coroner shall notify and deliver the remains for the purposes of medical science in accordance with that state law that handles that disposition. Next, the bill would allow the coroner to relinquish possession of cremated remains if there is no claim to such remains within 1 year of death. There is a published notice that the coroner makes that the remains must be claimed within 30 days. And if no claim is made within that 30 days, then the coroner can either dispose of the remains by burial, or if the decedent was a veteran, the coroner can relinquish the remains to the director of the Kansas Commission of Veterans Affairs Office or a national cemetery for disposition. The bill also includes new language stating that the coroner is not liable for disposition of remains except for gross negligence or willful misconduct. So if in some instance a next of kin or family member were to come forward at a later date, the coroner is protected with respect to liability for disposing of the remains if they act in accordance with state law. Finally, the bill authorizes the coroner to destroy or dispose of any personal property found with the body that has insubstantial commercial value. This bill did pass last session in March on a vote of 118 to 0 in the House. These provisions would go into effect on July 1st of this year if the committee decides to work the bill. I did note there is a technical amendment on a cross-reference should be updated on page 2 and line 13 if the committee decides to work the bill. I'll just note that for the reviser's technical cleanup. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd answer any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Committee questions. Senator Falscadeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, so did you say that this was only for veterans or just anyone?
No, that's just a special carve-out for disposition. So the coroner can dispose of the remains by burial, or if the decedent was a veteran, they could try and contact a national cemetery or the commission for disposition of the remains through those organizations.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, so also, does this address how the coroner must notify the family that they have the deceased body.
No, it doesn't. If the coroner knows who the family is or next of kin is, it doesn't address that situation. This address, if nobody has claimed the remains within a year, then the coroner can publish notice in the, county general publication newspaper. And if after another 30 days there's no claim made, then the coroner can go ahead and dispose of the remains.
Mr. Chairman, I may offer an amendment to this because currently in Wichita right now, so I received a phone call from a constituent that her daughter was in the coroner's office for 3 days before notification. And so talking with the police chief and others to find out when and it wasn't, understanding that it wasn't a natural death opposed to a sudden death. Police shows up. It wasn't anything suspicious. Police shows up. They call the coroner. Coroner takes the body. Body has identification, a purse, a cell phone. It's at a house. So anyway, the question is, who notifies the family? If the police is on site, and the police at the coroner is supposed to notify family, and so if we're talking about disposing of the body and their belongings, then I want to make sure that the coroner is notifying families if they have the information. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd have to research further as to whether or not there's any state laws that dictate when and who notification should occur.
Any other questions? Senator Blue?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jason, I'm looking at page 2, section 2. My question, or not section 2, subsection 2. My question is the 30 days shot clock. Is it 30 days from when the coroner publishes, or is it 30 days from when the deceased is deceased, so forth?
It's 30 days from the publication of that notice, because you have to wait there has to be a year without a claimant, and then the coroner would publish that notice, and then 30 days from that publication date, then they're free to dispose of the remains.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Gossage?
Thank you, Jason. I'm at the bottom of the first page. No person has claimed such cremated remains during the 3 years following the date of death or any period of time prescribed by, and then it goes into a statute. Can you tell us what that is?
I would have to go back and look at that statute again on that. There's a 3-year date, and then there's a period of time. I'll have to go back and look at that 23A231.
I think that one has to do with, and maybe I'm wrong, I looked it up this morning, with giving the body over to medical science. And maybe I'm wrong about that, Jason.
No, that's up in Chapter 9, Article 9,
Oh, that's right.
5, and I may have misspoken. It may be 3 years. I may have misread that when I was drafting my briefing. It may be 3 years from the date of death, because it's a period of whichever is longer. So I apologize for that, and I'll get a corrected bill brief to the committee.
Okay. Senator Clifford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason, page 2, line 2, about notification. I wonder if in the revisor world nationally there's a new standard for notification. Certainly, if my kids are any indication, they're never going to see a notice in a newspaper. And I wonder if we might make some flexibility there, and maybe one of the conferees might help us.
There has been recent legislation to allow for website publication of notices, particularly in counties that don't have an official county newspaper functioning anymore. And so, yes, we can certainly make an amendment to allow for that if there is a designated county website for legal notice publication.
Yeah, don't ask Greeley County about that. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Where there was a technical, you mentioned a technical amendment would be needed. Jason, I missed.
Oh, yeah. So on page 2 in line 13, there's a reference to subsection B, and I believe that should be a reference to subsection C.
Very good. If we work the bill, I'll just make a notes on that. Okay. Any other questions, committee? By the way, there is a minor fiscal note. If a county coroner would pass the cost on to the agency for the veterans, agency estimates the cost, for instance, would be anywhere from $800 to $3,000. But there's only been one instance of that, according to the Office of Veteran Services. So it's probably fairly rare from what I can, and it's not been reflected in the governor's budget. Any other questions for Jason? Seeing none, thank you, Jason. We have proponent in-person testimony. First from Shelley Stedman, who's the director of Sedgwick County Regional Forensic Science Center. Shelley, introduce yourself to the committee, and thank you for testifying.
Thank you. Good morning. Dr. Shelley Stedman, the director of the Sedgwick County Regional Forensic Science Center, Wichita, for the record, and I am here to support this bill and hopefully answer some of the questions that were already raised. In Sedgwick County, the Crime Laboratory and the District Coroner's Office occupy the Forensic Science Center. Under KSA 22A-215, the coroners in each jurisdiction have the responsibility to disposition unclaimed individuals after death. That can happen when next of kin is unable to be located or when relatives are located but refuse to take responsibility for their family member. In Sedgwick County, we have a variety of techniques, technology, and software to locate family. After due diligence to locate next of kin, or we receive a family's refusal to claim, the local funeral provider will receive the unclaimed body and provide a cremation. The box-shaped urn that contains the individual's ashes, now referred to as their cremains, is then stored at the funeral facility indefinitely. Most of that process will not change. The proposed language would merely provide direction to the coroners across the state for how and on what timeline a final disposition could be given to the cremains after they're created, as opposed to storing them indefinitely. At one time, the state had a program to assist families for the cost of funerals, but that was discontinued. And jurisdictions like ours have realized an emergent prevalence of families refusing to take responsibility due to cost. When the state's program ended in 2008, Sedgwick County was performing a combination of burials and cremations, but the need grew year after year. By 2015 and 2016, that number doubling and tripling. And with the rising cost of burial plots and burials, our commissioners approved for all unclaimed bodies to be cremated in October of 2016. As a point of reference, in 2023, the Sedgwick County coroner had to disposition a record high of 93 unclaimed bodies. Many of these have associated parcels of property, either attached to the box or stored in close proximity to the urn. And the urns themselves are of different shapes and sizes, as was the stature of the individuals whose ashes are contained within them. Taken together, the box shape and the associated property complicate uniform storage. Nevertheless, as I stand here today, Sedgwick County has in custody 600 cremains in storage. Although funeral providers have statutory guidance for final disposition of cremains and law enforcement agencies are provided the same for abandoned property, coroners are not provided any such guidance. Our hope is that you will adopt the language, providing coroners with this much needed direction and allowing for these individuals to be given a permanent disposition. I appreciate the opportunity to be heard. I thank you for listening to me today, and hopefully I can answer any additional questions you have.
I think we'll have Shelley stand for questions if you have any, committee. You have one, Senator Blue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is, what if you have a Jane or John Doe? Does your timeline change on when, if you can't even identify the body?
This has no bearing on unidentified individuals, only unclaimed individuals. All of our unclaimed individuals are identified.
Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your testimony. I understand you have quite a few, but would a more maybe acceptable system allowing time for responses be a graduated scale, not this short time frame? What is the longest length of time that you have?
We've stored bodies for over a year, waiting for families to respond to us, waiting for families to GoFundMe or crowdfund a
So what do you
funeral.
do?
So we try very hard, and we work with families to try to get them to accept responsibility. It's more common that we find families and they refuse than it is that we're unable to find next of kin.
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, you're telling me that the longest length you've had is a year? I don't think a year is
Well, let me put that into a frame of reference. When somebody dies, we begin the process to locate family. Sometimes that takes months. This body is in refrigerated storage. After a period of time, the body needs to be cremated. It cannot be viewed or embalmed. So after a certain period of time, that cremation needs to happen. Those cremains are then stored. If we find a family later, they can claim those cremains at the cost of fair market value for a cremation. And we have a low frequency of that, and we do provide families that opportunity. But there is a point in that storage process where cremation is the only option, and we provide that service. The family still has time. We've stored these in all perpetuity for them to come and claim. The difference is this would put a 3-year timeline on that period after death for that, plus the notification period for the family to claim.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
How long can you keep a body in refrigerated storage before it becomes problematic? I'm just curious.
It depends on the conditions of the body when it comes into the coroner's custody. Probably 60 to 90 days. I'm myself not a morgue attendant, so.
Yeah. Okay. Senator, I think Francisco had one, and then Senator Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for discussing this. It's not always easy to discuss. I was very pleased to learn during a cremation process that the funeral home took any of the parts of a body that weren't cremated, this would be gold fillings, and donated it to charitable organizations in that county. I would hope that the county that's taking on the responsibility and the cost would be that appropriate entity to receive any funds, and I don't know if that's part of this or not.
I'm not sure I understand your question. Currently, all of the property and valuables stay with the body in the event that a family would surface and claim the cremains and any of the property. We would have to take into additional considerations if there was any property associated with the body that was of value, which this doesn't currently necessarily address. But in my review of the property that I have seen in storage, it would have been things that couldn't necessarily go into the crematorium, like a lighter, not of significant value. And I can't address gold fillings. I don't know the answer to that. I'm sorry.
I did see, I was reading through the statutes this morning. I can't remember where I saw it, and maybe Jason could correct me on this, but there is in statute disposition of property that they do find with the body, and if it does have value, I think they do retain it for a certain amount of time, but I can't remember how long. Yeah. Did you have Senator Gossage?
I'm sorry, I was just following up, and then what? You said they retain it over a period of time.
And then I think
That's the question that I wanted to ask. I realize
Yeah,
this section, if I'm clarifying, if I may, Mr. Chair?
Certainly.
This section is just about cremation, correct?
This section is just about
All we're changing in the law is regarding cremation.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to verify that. So the part that I'm a little confused about is that if the deceased person a coroner in possession of the cremated remains of a deceased person may relinquish custody, doesn't say to whom, if no person has claimed such cremated remains during the 3 years following the date of death. Yet on number 2, they publish a notice in general in circulation in the county where the death occurred. And that's the 30 days. I'm trying to reconcile the 3 years and the 30 days. Can you help me with that?
So currently, we are storing these indefinitely. What would change is the storage of the cremains, once person is cremated and we have a box of ashes, that the minimum requirement would be for 3 years, at which time we would put forth the notification so anybody could have the opportunity to claim, and then they would be given what we're referring to as a final disposition, which would be a scatter garden, a tomb, a mausoleum, a crypt, or other permanent, perhaps non-accessible chamber. And that is page 2, sections 4, lines 14 through 16.
Just to follow up, if I may, perhaps we need a clarification in the law that states that the 30-day, that the notice that goes in or whatever how they're giving public notice is after the 3 years, because I don't read that to say that.
Yeah, we'll have to discuss that. If we work the bill, we will, absolutely. Senator Clifford had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the senator from Douglas asked the question I wanted to know. Thank you.
Senator Fausto.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So then the main goal is it's getting crowded in the storage place. And so you need this legislation to kind of free up space.
Currently, space isn't an issue, but as we're seeing the growing numbers, we recognize that to be a future problem, and we would like a solution, starting perhaps with the oldest of those in storage. The guidelines are for a reason, but we've kept these far longer than 3 years. And by frame of reference, I believe the funeral home timeline is 30 days. So this is in far excess to what is being the standard for funeral home providers who have claimed remains paid for, to allow ample time for that.
So, and Mr. Chairman, I actually support the concept, actually. But when you said the remains are property on that person, a lighter, so that made my mind think, maybe, two major differences here. So you might find a deceased homeless person on the street on Broadway in Wichita, and they may not even be from Wichita. And so your notification, is it going out? What's a broad notification, or just Cedric County, Wichita, state of Kansas? One question. And then, so if you could kind of share those, so the notification, I know. So when you say families refuse to claim, and then, but because of lack of money, have you had a situation where they let you know that is my family member, I don't have money to bury them? Do you give them their property, or you keep the property as collateral until they take ownership of the body? How does that work?
The property stays with the body. Yes, we have people say they can't afford it. Yes, we have people say, I'm related to him, I want nothing to do with that person. We have a lot of different scenarios with the refusal to claim.
Wow.
And you'd have to repeat the question you had prior to that.
Well, the notification, the at-large notification.
The notification, is as proposed, and I can't expand on that. I can tell you that our facility has discussed, we have a pretty high traffic website, and we are looking into other ways of making the unclaimed status of these individuals known through national databases we have access to. Some of the information that is required by the national databases is not necessarily information we have on all of the unclaimed. Some of the unclaimed are not coroner's cases. They die in the hospital and they come to our facility to be stored. We search for their family, we get in touch with their family, and then based on what information we have, we carry out the cremation. So there's a variety of different case types that the coroner ultimately becomes responsible for.
Yeah. Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate, again, all that you're doing. So I'm reading, this is on page 2, line 30, it says, if after investigation, the coroner determines that property found with the body has insubstantial commercial value, it tells you what you can do. What happens if you find out that it has substantial commercial value?
I believe that's answered in another statute, I believe, and I don't know if, Jason, if you've found that yet. I was digging through this morning, and it seems like I saw it somewhere. Didn't realize this would go this deep in this conversation, and I should have written down where that statute was. But I'm pretty sure if it has value, if there, and don't quote me on this, we'll have to do a little research. If there's value there, the body is unclaimed, and they need to pay for it, that property, I believe, can be sold and to cover the cost and expense of burial, as I understand it. But that's in another statute that exists, I believe, and I would have to check it. Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then I think we can talk with the reviser and see if a reference to that in this would be appropriate.
Probably so. Any other questions? Oh, Senator Francisco.
I'm sorry, I just have to ask it because, you know, and maybe you could get back with me or staff can, just the procedure of the notification in, the first contact. So how, I mean, I understand in talking to my people in the city of Wichita and Cedric County is that, so even if a person has a cell phone on them, you still can't notify family because you may need a code or a thumbprint to get into the phone. Even if they have identification, driver's license, etc., it still doesn't give a telephone number for the family on that identification. So how then, what is that process, the first step to notify? Even if you've got some identification, but...
So my understanding is that it's primarily a law enforcement duty to notify a family. However, we work to identify the person and also facilitate finding the family. The law enforcement agency also has similar technical and software resources to facilitate that. When we're at the scene, if family is present, our medical investigators provide all the contact information. I think the issue sometimes is that what is happening in that moment doesn't allow for things to be heard. We try to leave information behind, and we also try not to bother families. It is the next step after the body is taken into our custody and the autopsy occurs is for the family to notify us which funeral home they're going to be using and provide us a body release form. That's the process for the next step. Educating the family of that next step process is difficult, and I know that because I live in a small town where people know where I work and they've lost somebody and they contact me, and I know my investigator was there and I know my investigator told them that, but I know in my heart they don't remember. And so I think it's can be very confusing, and I would encourage you to contact our office and come visit the facility I am not the person who manages the unclaimed or the indigent program, but she's a wealth of information.
Mr. Chairman, I thought we had a hard job. Yours is more difficult. I have the utmost respect for you. Thank you. Wow.
Any other questions, committee? Seeing none, thank you. Thank you very much, Shelley, for your testimony. Next up, we have Grace Dugan, who is a private citizen. Grace, come and introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
My name is Grace Dugan, and I'm an 8th grader in Wichita, Kansas.
Very good. Go ahead with your testimony, Grace.
My class recently learned about the situation that led to the introduction of House Bill 2331. Thank you for taking the time to consider this important issue. My classmates and I believe that the cremated remains of the indigent should be properly taken to a final resting place. Human dignity serves as a foundation for universal human rights and should be the first thing considered when handling these remains. The cremated remains of around 500 deceased Kansans are currently being held in a place inaccessible to the public, including families. The majority of the deceased family members are unable to pay for a proper funeral, and some of these souls have no family, and we believe they deserve an appropriate place to rest. The Catholic Diocese of Wichita has offered to bury these remains free of charge for Sedgwick County. If House Bill 2331 is enacted, we are hopeful that this will lead to the dignified disposition of these human remains. Again, thank you for taking the time to consider this important matter. I will stand for questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Grace. Committee, any questions? Senator Gossage.
Well done, Grace.
Thank you.
Everybody who comes up to that microphone is always nervous, and you didn't seem nervous at all. You did a wonderful job, and your classmates should be very proud of you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. An actual question, Grace. I appreciate you being here, and I'm curious, you stated that it was brought to your class's attention, and I was curious, listening to the prior conferee's testimony also, it seems like a Wichita area issue, and what brought this to the level of attention that it becomes legislation?
Well, as said, there's 500 or 600 of them being stored, and I don't think that they are able to, as it says, like, it will be given over to, they can give over the handling of the remains, so.
But why did your class become involved, or how did you hear about it?
My teacher is very, she really is into politics and stuff, but she also, she cares about this very much, and so she wanted our class to know about it and to be involved in it too.
You took it a step further by testifying. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Grace. Great job.
Thank you.
Committee, we have written-only testimony proponents from Ryan Beatty, who's a Sedgwick County Commissioner, Elaine Howie, who's a teacher at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Catholic School, David Charles, the principal from that school, and Lisa Stewart, who's also at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Catholic School in Wichita. We do have one neutral conferee, Heidi Goff, from the Kansas Office of Veterans Services. She's on WebEx. Do we have her, Messiah? Okay. Heidi, are you there?
Yes, I am.
We can hear you, so go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman Thompson and committee members. I am Heidi Goff, Director of the Kansas Veteran Cemetery Program. Thank you for the opportunity to testify neutral this morning on HB 2331 as it may affect the veterans that we serve, specifically unclaimed veterans' remains. The goal of the Kansas Veteran Cemetery Program is to assure that all veterans and their dependents, including unclaimed veterans, are buried with dignity and respect. Once we are notified of possible unclaimed veterans' remains, we verify eligibility for interment at one of our 4 state veteran cemeteries. If found to be eligible, an attempt is made to locate next of kin, and we plan and execute the interment. Every year, our program inters approximately 20 unclaimed or unaccompanied veterans, with the majority interred at our Kansas Veteran Cemetery at Winfield, due to the population of homeless veterans and those who are served at the Robert J. Dole VA Medical Center in Wichita. The National Cemetery Administration, which regulates federal and state veteran cemeteries, and the federal government have outlined the proper burial of unclaimed veterans as defined in Section 213 of Public Law 114-223. The State Veteran Cemeteries also participates in the Missing in America Project, a nonprofit organization that is tasked with identifying unclaimed veteran remains for proper burial in a federal or state veteran cemetery. The majority of the time, we are notified of unclaimed veteran remains by funeral homes or the VA hospital. However, there are times we are contacted by organizations like Missing in America or concerned citizens who know of deceased neighbor who is a veteran without family, or even an urn found in a purchased storage facility. In House Bill 2331, I would like to suggest in page 2, lines 17 through 19, that the name of our agency be changed to Kansas Office of Veteran Services. We also have some concern with the wording on page 2, line 9 through 12, which states, if a person who is authorized to take custody of the cremated remains of a deceased person claims such remains, then such person shall be required to reimburse the coroner for the costs of such cremation or any applicable fees assessed by the Office of the District Coroner. The Kansas Office of Veteran Services is authorized by Article 17, 65-1732, the regulation of embalmers and funeral directors, funeral establishments for the proper disposal and interment of veterans' unclaimed remains into a state veteran cemetery after 90 days in which the veteran remains are unclaimed by next of kin. With the current wording of HB 2331, it suggests that a funeral home or veteran cemetery claiming veteran remains would possibly be held accountable or responsible for the reimbursement of cremation costs or other coroner fees for the purpose of proper interment of a veteran in a state veteran cemetery. The Kansas Veteran Cemetery Program would be required to reallocate current funding to support this new requirement. Currently, the program receives $1,002 plot allowance from the VA for each veteran interred. The cost of cremation in Kansas ranges from $850 to $2,200, and most of the excess interment fees would be passed to the cemetery program. There is also a concern about whether funeral homes would agree to assist us in the process if they were held responsible for these fees. Finally, I'd also like to reference the existing Kansas statute 73-304 that holds county commissioners responsible for the proper burial of honorably discharged veterans who are unclaimed and/or with insufficient means to pay for burial. Over the years, we have assisted counties and our funeral homes with these burials. Perhaps reference to this existing statute could be made in this bill to assure that the state and federal cemeteries could continue to provide this service for veterans and their dependents without expense to the cemeteries. Our desire is to be a resource and facilitator for funeral directors, coroners, veteran organizations, and the public to assist and ensure that all unclaimed and unaccompanied veterans in Kansas are honorably interred at one of our state veteran cemeteries. With that in mind, we thought it was important to clarify the wording in this bill and reference the existing statute pertaining to veteran burials. Thank you for listening to our concerns.
Thank you, Heidi. Committee, any questions? Senator Gossage.
Yes, I'm just a little confused because we kept hearing funeral homes, but this section is specific to coroners.
I think that the reason why this was saying about funeral homes, more specifically like crematories, or that we'd have to owe fees to by the wording of this bill.
I guess I would ask Jason if he could clarify, because I just see it starts with the coroner in possession of cremated remains. I'm a little confused.
And Jason?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, what's the question again?
The question is the clarification that I understood that was being requested was having to do with funeral homes and others that perform these services, where I read this section to be specific to coroners only.
Yes, this statute and this bill only is directed at district coroners and their duties and obligations. If there's a clarification that needs to be done in statute with respect to other entities that take care of the disposition of remains, then we would need to look at other statutes and make the amendments to those.
So that could potentially be in a separate bill, in a different bill.
It could be, or it could be, because of the subject matter of this bill, it would be amenable to this bill as well, and still within the same subject matter.
All right. Then I would just ask, Mr. Chair, I guess I don't quite fully understand what the presenter is asking for. So if you could just clarify, what specifically are you asking for in your testimony?
Okay, the wording of the bill states that perhaps that anybody who has, it says any person who has claims to the remains could be held responsible for the cost of the cremation. So the statute that I stated before, statute 73304, allows us to take custody of veterans' cremains to be buried at one of our state veteran cemeteries if there's no next of kin. And so the concern would be with that wording is whether we would be held liable for the cost of that cremation with the wording of this bill.
Now I understand. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Heidi, who picks up that difference between the $1,002 plot allowance and say it does cost $2,200? Who picks up the difference right now?
That would be the cemetery program. It would come out of our budget.
Okay. I may have to have a discussion with you before we work this bill to make sure we get this perfectly clear, and I'll work with Jason on it as well. Committee, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Heidi. I appreciate your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman.
We don't have any opponent testimony, committee, on this bill. And so at this time, again, I don't think we'll work this tomorrow. It looks like I need to get with Jason and some of the conferees to make sure we get the language correct on this. And I made some notes on this, so we can try to get it right and make it easy for working the bill. So we will close the hearing on HB 2331. Tomorrow we have a hearing on SB 299. That's on Supreme Court nominating commissions and Open Records Act. Remember, we don't have committee on Friday or Monday. Monday's a holiday. And then next week we will have a hearing on the existing fallen firefighters memorial on Tuesday. And then we're going to have the hearing on the Lottery and Racing and Gaming Commission next week. So probably a few questions about that, I would imagine. I believe that is it for today. And thank you for your time and testimony, everyone. We are adjourned.